Hi, this is Amy Hopkins. I'm president of the Parrot Club, and I want to welcome everybody to the March 2026 meeting. And tonight we're very excited to have Jasmine Raymond talk to us about injuries from toys. Jasmine is a veterinary technician, bird behaviorist, and co-founder of RAAM Mobile Veterinary Clinic. She's vice president, hospital manager, and lead technician for RAAM. Jasmine has been working in the veterinary profession since 2007, starting her career as an animal care technician, working primarily with exotic animals and then later with dogs and cats. In 2019, Jasmine partnered in the founding of RAAM, where there's a strong emphasis on education, compassion, and client experience. She started the Bird Behavior Academy, designed for bird owners who want to nurture a trusting bond, healthy environment, and happy lifestyle for their birds. She is an avian fear-free certified professional and member of the International Association of Animal Behavior Consultants. Jasmine provides lectures on avian behavior and handling for Tufts University, various bird clubs, and many avian social media groups. These are veterinary-approved programs that are tailored to training bird behavior through education. The goal of these programs is to provide you with all the necessary training tools for success and for you and your bird to have a healthy and flourishing means of communication that will foster a rewarding lifelong friendship. And so I will turn it over to Jasmine.
Okay, so great. Thank you again, and apologies. Thank you for your patience. So my name is Jasmine Raymond. I'm with RAAM Veterinary Care, co-owner, veterinary technician, and bird nerd. We created this business just based off of the fact that we wanted to educate owners on their animals, because it's one thing to own a pet, but it's one thing to really be a pet owner, and those are two very different things. And that's something that we really try to instill in our pet owners, is that when it comes to pet care, we definitely take that very seriously. Let me just make sure I can. Let's see. Okay. So I am avian fear-free certified. What that means is basically that I have gone through extensive training in regards to avian care, avian CPR, end-of-life care, and just overall treatment care as a whole. Parrots are very different from other species, and we take that very seriously at RAAM, and we are very interested in birds, and we specialize in their care. So we try to go above and beyond to make sure that we are very, very well versed in all aspects of avian training and care. I am very happy to say that I am halfway through my IBAC behavior training, and I'm working towards my full-blown avian certification consultation training. And that's all thanks to my clients and my patients. So today we're going to talk about bird toy injuries, and the first thing that we want to get into is the importance of toys in general. So parrots in general are extremely intelligent. We all know this as parrot owners. Most of their time in the wild is spent foraging for food and, enrichment, and they're always active. They're always extremely busy. They are a species that always has to stay stimulated. So that's something that once we domesticated them, that we have to completely try to enforce in their lives in order for them to have, a very fulfilled lifestyle. So we encourage natural behavior. We encourage foraging. We encourage different types of stimulants to the mental aspect of their lifestyle in order for them to be able to have a fulfilled lifestyle. So toys, and as far as their impact on behavior, what does that do? It provides mental stimulation. It reduces destructive behaviors. Now, everything in regards to parrots kind of tailors back to their behavior and behavior training. So again, we take these animals and we've domesticated them. We've taken them from the wild and we've put them into cages. And now we are responsible for the rest of their lives, which can sometimes be 30, 40, 50 years, depending on the species of the bird. we are responsible for making sure that we stimulate them appropriately so that they have a fulfilled lifestyle, and that they don't get bored, and so that they are, building confidence, and that they're socializing. And that's what toys really kind of come into play, because these are the things that actually increase their stimulation and help them have a good lifestyle. Um, so they're very intelligent. Dr. Rod often tells me that birds typically have the mindset of like a 9 to 10-year-old, depending on what type of parrot that they are. So they're constantly intrigued to learn. They're constantly wanting to learn new things and to experience new things. And just like children, oftentimes that comes into play with toys and different types of activities that you're dealing with when it comes to your birds, and those are very important things for them during their growth, whether you get them from a hatchling or if you're getting them, adopting them at an older age. It still plays a major part in their life, and it's something that's very important to them. They do not need much, despite what a lot of people may think. When we're spending, tons of money on toys and food and foraging essentials and things of that nature. Birds are very simple, but very complex in the same nature. That's a little bit kind of contradictive, but it is very true. They are very complex creatures in a sense from the medical standpoint, but when it comes down to it, really, they do not need much. I mean, parrots can be very, very well stimulated over something very, very small, whether it's a piece of tissue paper that has a peanut wrapped in it, or, something as small as, a song playing in the background that they are, enjoying, and that they're, bonding with their human with. They really do not need much in order to stimulate them, but they do need that stimulation in their lives. So if we go into unsafe bird toys and materials, I'm sure everyone already knows all of this, but we really want to focus on what's not safe for our birds. So unsafe woods like cedar, cherry, plywood, and oak, they're very unsafe. It's something that you have to really be careful with when you're looking at those wood toys or those wood chip type of toys. As much as the parrots really, really enjoy them, we really have to be careful at what type of wood that we're introducing them to, because that can be very toxic to them. Ropes are probably one of the biggest things that we see as far as injuries in the clinic. Nylon blend ropes should never be used. But in general, ropes can have frays and strands that can come off of them when parrots are playing with them, that can cause pretty traumatic injuries. Oftentimes they create kind of like a tourniquet, in a sense, around either the limbs or the wings, that can really cause a lot of damages. Fasteners like sleek key rings, spring-loaded clips, shower rings to fasten the toys. All of these are really, really great, looking type of toys, but when it really comes down to it, they can cause a lot of damage, in particular to the beak area, because that's where the birds are what they're using the most to play with, and oftentimes they can, without knowing, they can cause injuries to their own beaks by like chewing and chomping into these fasteners, and they can cause some pretty severe injuries. And then fabrics can always pose hazards, whether it's, the sleeping huts that they promote on, YouTube and things of that nature, or just fabrics in general with the hanging toys. A lot of times that we've seen, birds can actually ingest that, and we've actually had to pull a lot of that out of their crop, and that can be pretty uncomfortable, needless to say, for the parrot and in general. But it can also cause a lot of internal infections. So we try to steer away from fabrics as best as we possibly can. And then, of course, painted or glued products are always a no-no. We definitely want to steer away from that as much as possible. So these are some examples of some of the things I was talking about with the fast clips. With these clips, they're very easy to get into. And then once the parrot's beak is in it, it's very hard to get out of it, especially since there's really no release. The rings are very, very toxic between the paint that is on them and then just in general, just, the way that they're manufactured. Sometimes they can get into beaks, they can get into nares. I've seen them get into the bottoms of the wings. It can vary. And then rope in general, as we mentioned, is very toxic and it can cause a lot of damage. Toys that are considered safe are going to be obviously your safe woods. So your eucalyptus, your pine, your birches, things of that nature, maple wood. Those are all very, very safe woods. Ropes, 100% natural fiber ropes, cotton, hemp, are all very, very safe ropes that we typically use. And then for the fasteners, the C-clamps tend to be the safest. Again, when it comes to fasteners, we've seen so many injuries with them that it's hard to say that one is safer than the other. But, typically anything in the hands of the wrong parrot or the feet of the wrong parrot, shall I say, can be dangerous depending on, how that parrot is. And, they might be a little bit more aggressive with things. So we typically say, do not give them the fasteners. But for parrots that are a little bit more gentler with their toys, we're okay with any type of fasteners other than the ones that were mentioned prior that are considered dangerous to them. And then as far as bells, the bells are, again, it's kind of like a hit or miss. A lot of times the clapper can be removed from the bell. And we've seen parrots unfortunately choke or have them caught in the crop with the fastener of the bell actually stuck in their crop. So it's really just picking the right size for the right bird in that particular situation. A lot of parrots really, really do enjoy their bells. So we try to make that a possibility for them so that they can have them in the cage, but it can be a little bit dangerous given the situation and dependent on the actual bell size. So in my opinion, the best toy is always engagement. Engaging with your parrot, stimulating their mind by providing them with attention, love, care, talking to them, and specifically just making sure that you give that bird a little bit of time every single day to come out and spend time with you. We are all very, very busy, and a lot of times, we get birds at a very young age and they live very, very long, or circumstances in our lives change and, we're working all the time and we really don't have a lot of time to spend with them, as much time as we really should. But even if it's 10, 15 minutes during the day, just to engage, just to have a conversation with them, just to talk to them, sing to them, play with them a little bit, it's really the best stimulation that they can possibly get. And behaviorally, it's the best tool for them. They hold on to these very, very small moments. I have a Senegal parrot, and our best moments are in the morning when we're getting ready for work, and I'm singing to him while I'm getting ready, and he knows that mommy's going to leave for work, and that's okay because we're going to have our little 15 minutes of sing time and play time, and then mom's off to work, and he's by himself. But then when we come home, it's the same thing. It's 15 to 20 minutes of immediate engagement of, hi, how are you? We've missed you. We can't believe we've been away from you for so long. We love you. And it's just kind of like just that personal engagement that really is the best quote unquote toy for them, because it stimulates their mind and it lets them know that they really, really are loved. So when we look at bird toys, we can go down kind of the rabbit hole of going on Amazon and Bird Box and all of these different places And we can find all of these different beautiful, fun looking toys that are very stimulating to the mind. But when you take a deeper look into them, and this is from, specifically from a medical standpoint, I started to pick all the imperfections out of each and every single one of these little toys that I possibly can. And it's from a good place because we want these guys to be safe. And on paper, these toys look very fun. The birds on the pictures look like they're having the time of their lives. But realistically, are these really, really safe toys? And are these really toys that are going to last a long time, but more importantly, provide the stimulation that we need for our birds? Toys are extremely expensive. So it gets to a point where, we decide as, the caregivers, because between, as a parrot owner, food is expensive, and my parrot probably wastes about 70%, if not more, of the food that I buy him from throwing it all around and having a party in his cage. And then the toys are expensive, and my parrot is the one who destroys them. So you either have one of two scenarios. You either have a parrot who in this picture is kind of standoffish and very afraid of the toy, doesn't go near it, wants nothing to do with it. And in my circumstance, my parrot will, like, in 3 months say, hey, this new thing that's been in my cage for 3 months, I just noticed it, so now I'm going to destroy it. But there are some parrots that want nothing to do with it forever, and they're like, stranger danger, it's in my cage, I don't know what it's doing here, get it out of here. And then you have the parrots that destroy it within 15 minutes. So it's like, it's one of those things where they are expensive, and it's kind of a hit or a miss. Either they're destroying it within moments, or they're completely petrified of it and they want nothing to do with it. So we find ourselves in a situation where, what do we do? We want to provide that stimulant, but also we want to save money and be able to, provide for our animal for long term. So that's where homemade toys come into play. And as you can see in this slide, homemade toys are very popular, and they have become more and more popular with, the do it yourself videos, and just in general, just tutorials on how to make toys. But are they safe? And that's my biggest thing. And this is what I always tell clients. It's always a good idea to make toys at home if you can and if you have the time. But are they safe? Is it something that is going to be healthy for your animal and for you? So, in this picture, you see a couple of different things where you see, the toys that are hanging up against the wall, which are a great idea. But again, that to me, from a medical standpoint, is it secure? Is it fastened? Are we sure that this cannot come down on this bird? Are we sure that when this bird is being aggressively playing with this, wooden toy, or, potentially hormonal towards this wooden toy, that this isn't going to all come down on them? The budgie in the box, that, we joke about that at work all the time, like the budgie in the box toy, it's not acceptable. That's totally not going to withhold any type of weight. And as soon as that budgie starts, playing around or being active, that whole thing is most likely going to come down. So these are type of things that we see on a daily basis that really create bird injuries. A lot of, again, most of the time, they're sturdy, but a lot of the times they are not, and that's when we have to see them in the clinic. So homemade toys are always great, but they are something that that you have to do appropriately. And to me, less is more. So I'm really for homemade toys that are recyclable items, and that are items that are very lightweight and are very simple. So, the toilet paper or the paper towel roll foraging kits, you stuff some paper in there, some shredded paper, possibly some treats, you seal them up, and then you put them in the cage, and the bird just, not only does it intrigue their mental capacity, but it also intrigues them from a standpoint of like, you know, this is new. What is this? How can I go about this? It's a puzzle to them. So foraging toys are always, in my mind, the best homemade bird toys that you can possibly have. Your typical foil papers or your typical boxes with, again, shredded paper in it, with, just a treat or two, maybe some a small tiny piece of millet in between, just something to intrigue them. We do always tell our clients to not reuse Amazon packages, boxes, or FedEx package boxes, or anything that has been shipped to you, just because we do not know the warehouse that they have been sitting in and what type of chemicals they've been exposed to during transport. So typically we do recommend using, household items such as, toilet paper rolls, paper towel rolls, different types of shredded paper and things of that nature. So size does matter in this situation. You do not want to make a toy for your budgie that is bigger than your budgie, and you definitely do not want to make a toy for your gray that is much, much smaller than your gray. We have seen a lot of situations where, unfortunately, toys have fallen on top of birds just because of the heaviness of the weight of them. In this slide, you can actually see that it's a hoop ring that's holding this toy that's standing next to the budgie. And that's probably one of the most dangerous things that you can do, because regardless of the size of the bird, that is just an unstable structure, and it can come down on them, and it can hurt them regardless of how big or small they might be. But in particular with budgies, a lot of times what I've seen when it comes to going, doing home visits, is that a lot of times people will overload the cage with very, very large toys for these budgies. And, if one of those things comes down on them, it's very unfortunate. And there's nothing that they can do. There's really nothing that they can do to protect themselves. So it's just something that we have to be, aware of and in regards to size. And same thing for larger birds. We do not want to give a large bird a very small toy, because they can easily break that toy open and they can easily ingest that material into their crop. And that can become extremely, extremely toxic and dangerous. It can cause infections, foreign body types of procedures. So we really want to make sure that regardless of whether we're buying the toys or we're making the toys, that they are appropriate to the size of the bird that we are tailoring them to. So this is something I got from the Rhode Island Parrot Rescue when we first started, and it was just basically a minimum cage recommendation, and it's based on wingspan. So what Corey from the Rhode Island Parrot Rescue always taught me is that you want your cage to be big enough that your bird can completely spread their wings and have a 360 span around them, that their wings can be open. That prevents blood feather ruptures, that prevents injuries, and it honestly just gives them the most comfortable life that they can possibly live. So when we're introducing toys to the cage, that is extremely important, because you can have a bird that has the appropriate cage size, but when you overload that cage with toys on top of toys, that cage then becomes a danger zone for them. So, some birds, a lot of birds, they have night frights, right? So in the middle of the night, they have a night fright and they're flapping their wings, and they need that stability, but they also need the room to be able to do what they have to do appropriately and hopefully come out of it. Now, when you overload that cage with the excessive amounts of toys, it's just constant interactions to their daily life in general, whether they're having a night fright or just their general life. going about eating and drinking and things of that nature, if they're constantly having to bump up against toys and things of that nature, it's not appropriate for them. And they feel claustrophobic, and it can cause behavioral issues, and it can lead to feather plucking. It can lead to extreme biting. It can lead to aggressive type of behavior because they're just so frustrated, because they are just constantly living in somewhat of a hoarding type of situation, even though we are trying to do the best for them. It just might not be exactly what they need. So we need them to have the proper amount of space to spread out. So in this picture, as you can see, this bird is a smaller type of medium to smaller type of bird, but this cage is appropriate enough for it in general, even if it were empty. But this owner set up the toys in a manner that this bird can climb several types of layers here, and they can still spread their wings out. They can play with different types of areas of the cage, but they can still have that space that they really, really need to be able to go about their daily life, as well as, having that stimulation that they need from all of the toys that are being provided to the cage as well. So this is a really, really well put together cage, in my opinion, even with all of these toys. Is it a little bit much? Maybe, but for this particular bird, it works for them. So, if as long as it works for the bird and it's safe and productive, then that works for us. Okay, so we're going to go into some of our case studies here, and I do want to warn people that some of these photos might be very difficult for us to view. I will say that each and every single bird in these photos have all lived, and they have all recovered very, very wonderfully from their injuries. But this is the reality of some of the toy injuries that we do see at the clinic. But again, all of these birds have lived. They are recovering wonderfully, and they're thriving. So, if you would like to turn off your screen, now's the time. But we're going to go ahead and get into these to these photos now. Okay, so the first photo that we have here, and I will be honest with you, Dr. Rod has told me that this has been something that he has seen multiple times in his career. This is the first time I have physically seen this in my clinic. And it was very traumatic to see, as well as probably it was very traumatic for this, or very likely traumatic for this bird. But this bird somehow was able to get into this clamp that was fastened. They were able to get into this clamp, and the clamp was, went through the bottom of the beak and out through the inner top of the beak. We had to slightly sedate the bird, and I'll be honest with you, this bird was a complete trooper. He came in and he was just so happy and proud of himself. He had no idea that he was even injured. He wanted to play. He was singing, and just the happiest thing you could ever see. So we did have to slightly sedate him because he was so active and excited. And what we had to do is we had to take a small dental drill, and we had to cut the top of it and the bottom of the, as you can see in the picture over off to the side where it was cut, we had to kind of drill it and then pull it out from there. We had to take some gauze and obviously pack around the eyes and into the wound so that none of the shards of the material would actually get to the bird or injure the bird. And then this particular bird ended up staying with me actually for about 2 to 3 days post-op, just while he recovered, and he recovered wonderfully. When I tell you, that same evening, after he had his medications, I gave him a little bit of food, and I took him out for a little bit, and he was just hopping around and just so very happy. But you could tell that he was so interested and intrigued in different things that it was easily understandable how he got into this mess. But it's just a constant reminder for us, just to make sure that our fasteners are securely closed. That was the first thing I did when I got home that day. I ran up to my bird's room and I was like, oh, let me just make sure all of these fasteners are completely closed, just in case he decides to do something strange. So this is one of the biggest and most popular injuries that we have been seeing lately in the clinic. So this is something to be very well aware of. So the other injury that we see often with homemade toys in particular are when people use inappropriate rope material, and they tourniquet around the legs of the bird. So we've had, just within the last couple of months alone, we've had 2 cases, 2 budgies, very, very similar cases where the owners have made homemade toys and they have somehow managed to mangle their feet or one foot into it, and it creates a tourniquet around the foot, and as you can see in the pictures, it creates some serious soft tissue swelling, which inevitably almost always ends up in amputation. And it's very unfortunate. As much as we try to save these limbs and we try to save these legs, between the bands that are on them and then the tourniquet, it's very, very difficult. If there is no, if they lack, feeling in that foot, really, there's no reason to keep the leg, and they will, or the foot, and they do much better without it. And we have done unfortunately, many amputations, in particular on budgies for toy injuries such as this. And they've all recovered very, very well, and they do great, and they live a very great lifestyle. But it's not ideal, obviously. And then inappropriate size and cage size. So this also comes into play. We had one parrot that came in whose band had somehow gotten trapped between their back, talon and their foot, basically. And we were able to remove that, and we were able to save this foot, which was wonderful. But this is just inappropriate sized toys in general. He was playing with a very, very large toy, and he got overstimulated, and this is kind of what led to that. A lot of that is also the band size with these old school bands. Sometimes it can be very, very dangerous, just because they've been on them for so many years, and things evolve and medicine evolves, and these bands are very old school, and sometimes they can cause some damage to the birds. But a lot of times it's mostly because they're overstimulated and they're creating that themselves. And then as far as the green cheek on the left, that was also due to inappropriate size. He was playing with a very, very, very overlarged toy, which created a lot of damage to his beak. And he ended up scratching the side of his face with it, and we did have to put him on antibiotics and clear out the situation. It was a through and through hole. Unfortunately, that was created. It was a toy that had some kind of like some wooden spikes on it that ended up, kind of sticking into him, that created this injury from what the owner had explained to us. So, again, it's just too big of a toy for too small of a creature. So here are some links for some do it on your own bird toys. Bird Foraging and Play by Pets, Birds, and Lefebvre. I love Lefebvre. We love Lefebvre. So anything that they put out, we are 100% supportive of. Beakbox is also a really good one, and they have a great checklist on how to choose a safe bird toy, and so that's always very popular. And then AAV, Association for Avian Veterinarians, has an enrichment tip that is super helpful for owners as well. And basically what it does is it just breaks down everything for you, why toys matter, types of safe toys to use, and quick steps to make simple toys. And really, it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a long time to make a simple toy. It's something that you can do kind of like while you're watching TV, or just, during your downtime. It's really not that, it really shouldn't be that serious. Especially since, again, the less is more for them. They while they do really, really need the stimulation, it's really not that serious to the point where we have to put the bells and the whistles and all of those things that could potentially cause harm to them. We can make something very, very simple and in a foraging manner so that they are also stimulating their mind. So that's all really I have, and I would love to open it up to questions.
Okay, thank you, Jasmine. You can stop sharing now.
Okay.
That way we can get people on the screen, and we have some questions in the chat.
Sure. Let me
Yeah, so just hit stop share and
stop share.
And there we go. There we go. We have everybody now. Okay, fantastic. Let's start off with one comment about bells before we get to ropes.
Yes.
Yeah, in fact, they sell clapperless bells now. Or if you have a bird that doesn't, isn't going to do anything with the clapper. But the one bell that you should 100% avoid, there is no bird that should ever be in contact with a sleigh bell. And you see this sometimes on toys. If you see one on a toy, remove it. Always remove it. That is never, ever a safe toy. Sorry, excuse me. The sleigh. Sorry, water just went down the wrong way. So, excuse me.
Right. Yeah, the sleigh bells are definitely a better option. The clappers, we've seen a lot of parrots that have just ingested the clapper part of it, or unfortunately, we've seen a lot of times where they'll get their beak stuck in between the entire bell because they're trying to get the clapper. So it's one of those very tough situations.
And then sleigh bells, their toes get caught because the sleigh bell, four areas that narrow down to a point. So they put their toe and it gets stuck and they can't get it out. And so those are dangerous.
Yes.
Getting back to ropes. So you mentioned cotton. Cotton is usually considered unsafe because cotton doesn't break. I'm sorry. What else?
So cotton can, it really just depends on how they braid it or weave it into the actual toy. As you can see in my bird cage right behind me, the rope toy that is hanging all the way down is most likely made of cotton. I got it from a Parrot, auction, and he absolutely loves it. But you can see there are certain areas when he kind of starts getting into his mood where he'll get into it and start to fray at it. And I think that's where it really becomes, a little bit more dangerous.
Now, I've always heard that poly rope was good. But
poly rope can be good. Yes, poly rope can be very good. Yes,
I've heard some complaints about it because it's an artificial nylon and chemicals and that. But poly rope is good because it doesn't fray. Poly rope's not going to generally wrap around toes and.
I think someone said it's too dark to see my cage, but so I know it's a little dark in here right now because it is light, but this is the bird's cage. And there's Pete.
Oh, cutie.
Yeah.
Like the cotton boingy things and bendable perches, those are good. But like everything else, you have to keep an eye on it. If it starts to fray, you want to trim back edges.
Absolutely.
But I think I've heard some people complain about poly rope, but I find polyrope is generally pretty good to use for toys. Someone oh yes, Myra says she buys bagels. Bagels are great. Birds love bagels. Um, does everyone know what a bagel is? A birdie bagel? So they're round cardboard that's pressed into a shape that so it's like a loop like this. So that's what they call it, a bagel. But it's pressed cardboard, and the birds can actually rip it off and rip it off. Oh, okay. Wendy's got a bagel. If anyone looks at Wendy or makes a screen, that's a birdie bagel, and usually there's colored paper on the outside, and they're totally safe and birds love those. I mean, they can just spend hours or days or weeks. Just it's not for the little birds. It's not generally for things like budgies or cocktails, but the larger birds just love ripping those, and those are really great for toys. We had a bunch of questions, and I was in here on the conversation about toilet paper rolls. I know some people swear by them, and you talk about them, Jasmine. And there's been a lot of debate for many years about the glue used in those and paper towel rolls, and people I think have generally kind of agree that it's probably safe because it touches our sensitive areas, and paper towel rolls touch our food. But and I don't have a big problem with paper towel rolls, but I really do have a problem with toilet paper rolls because we know that every time a toilet is flushed the air fills with tiny particles everywhere in the room. We know this for a fact. They've done studies, and as you get close to the end of the paper towel roll, those little particles are going to go through paper. When you get to the end of the roll, your hands are probably not going to be clean when you take that roll off and put the new one on. And I just don't think that's a very sanitary thing to use for our birds, but I'm open to discussion about that.
I will.
Yeah, I mean,
A recycle where I lived wouldn't even accept toilet paper rolls for recycling because of that.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm, I'm surprised. I throw mine in the recycle bin. So I just don't feel comfortable using that in my bird. So what do you think about that, Jasmine?
I mean, it's definitely a preference, owner preference. I certainly do not want anyone to do anything that they're not comfortable with. And I will say that as long as we've been in practice, I have never heard of any injury or illness that has been introduced due to a paper towel or a toilet paper roll. And a lot of times, to be quite honest with you, with the paper towel and the toilet paper rolls, they're more interested in what's inside of it rather than the outside. But again, they're parrots and they're going to do whatever they want to do. So there's no rules when it comes to anything like that. So I agree. If you feel as though that could be a potential contaminant to them, do not do it. Absolutely do not. In our household, usually the last like tiny little bit of roll on the toilet paper gets like peeled off and like tossed to the side and then given to the bird. But I mean, it really just everything, when I used to babysit as a kid, and I'll never forget this because it still stays with me this day. When I got my first job babysitting as a kid, I remember my mom saying, in the hand, anything can be dangerous in the hands of a child, right? And that's the same exact thing for birds. What's safe for someone who has had a parrot for 30 years could be introduced to a parrot at 2 years old and be completely dangerous. We don't, they're so unpredictable and they're so intelligent at the same time that it's really hard to tell. So to me, if you are even hesitant about it, don't do it. Don't do it.
What do you think about there are you see toys out there. I don't even know what they call this stuff, but it's that very thin sort of foam stuff that a lot of times it'll be cut in the shape of stars and it'll be stacked up, but or you may see the foam blocks. There's some kind of foam. I don't know what kind of foam it is. Um, that always makes me a little bit nervous because it depends on you. Like I had one bird that would tend to eat everything, so I was always afraid he'd eat toys. I'd never give him that. I have other birds that just chew and they don't swallow anything, but I'm just nervous about that foam. I don't know what it's made of. I don't know if it's toxic or not, but you see it in a lot of bird toys.
Foam makes me very nervous because, if they ingest the foam and it sits in their crop, foam is something that can gather a lot of different types of bacteria and can hold it, so it harbors that bacteria, it harbors that infection, and it can stay in there for so long if gone untreated. So those type of things that are not easily digestible or, easily broken down definitely do worry me quite a bit. I often tell my clients, if they can, to try to stay away from foam toys as much as possible. We did not touch base on that a lot in this session, but that is a great point, and I definitely do not. I do not condone foam types of toys just because of what they can harbor as far as infection and bacteria.
The
Yeah.
other it may be kind of stupid and may be wrong, but I always had this fear that if a bird swallowed some of the foam, it was going to expand and just block off their gut and just cause an obstruction.
Right. Right. So it's a little bit. So we've had birds are so crazy in a sense, like when it comes to medical standpoint. So we actually had a bird that came in the other day who the owner was doing it was a hatchling, so it was a very, very young bird, and the owner was force feeding, and he was force feeding, in a sense, assist feeding, every couple of hours with a rubber tube and a syringe. Somehow this rubber syringe managed to get into this animal's crop and just completely just trapped in his crop. So he brought him in on emergency, and when on presentation the parrot was completely fine. His temperature was normal, his behavior was normal, his overall demeanor was completely normal, other than the fact that he had a tube probably this big and in his crop, and we were able to completely remove it. But it goes to prove to you, imagine the things that could get stuck in there without us knowing, and without them showing us the symptoms of, that could gather and continue to just hold bacteria. And that's what's scary when it comes to toys, because if they're able to do that with the assistance of a human, imagine what they're able to do on their own without us even watching, and what's left to them on their own devices in the cage. And that's what really, really, concerns me. Sometimes I'll come home and Pete will have a great toy that he, again, has probably not touched for a month, but decided today was going to be his favorite toy, and it's completely shredded. And the first thing that comes to my mind isn't, oh my gosh, I'm so happy for him that he played with his toy. The first thing that comes to my mind from a medical standpoint is, oh my God, what did he digest in all of this? And is this going to be toxic to him? So I saw someone asked about egg cartons. Egg cartons are super safe. They are biodegradable. They are super, super safe for birds. We definitely recommend them at all times. Again, we have to be careful. If you're raising backyard chickens and you're putting the backyard chicken eggs into cartons, probably not the best type of cartons to then introduce to your parrot. So these are all, again, at our clinic, we no longer see chickens, not because we don't like chickens. We love chickens, but at the same time, we have such a high clientele base for the citizen species for parrots that we do not want to cross-contaminate those, because that can be very deadly. So chicken carton or egg cartons at your own discretion. You really have to be careful and aware of where you're purchasing this stuff from. Is it safe? It really, nowadays it's so hard to tell. It really is.
I know, and with
salmonella in an egg carton, it could be. There very well could be salmonella in an egg carton. An egg cracks and sits in the carton for who knows how long, until someone buys it or someone finds it, or they reuse that carton. You never know. So I mean, it's probably best to stay away from them right now, given everything that's going on with the avian influenza and things that have happened throughout the years. But they have always been prior to this, they've always been a safe and a safe type of bird type of toy.
Can't you? I think you can buy egg cartons that
You can.
unused egg cartons. Because again, salmonella would be my biggest concern about the egg cartons. There are a lot of questions in the chat. They're coming in. If people want to unmute and ask them, you can do that, or Jasmine go through the chat and answer the questions. But if you want to just feel free to unmute and jump in or hit the little raise your hand button, but there are a lot of questions here to go through.
I do have a few questions that I wrote down ahead of time. Can I ask them?
Yes, please.
Absolutely.
So on the stainless steel chains, can you see that?
Yep.
You know how on the end it has that ring? On all, when you buy, they all have that the toy sits on. Did you ever see where a large parrot could get their beak to open that and get their beak stuck in it?
So does that ring open at all for you?
No,
Okay.
I can't open it.
Then you should be fine.
But it's not
It's
actually
usually-
welded, and that's how they're all made.
It's usually the ones that are easily unfastened. You know what I'm, yes, that they tend to go inside of. The ones that are completely sealed, again, everything can become
open.
okay. Anything can become dangerous. It depends on the size of the parrot as well. If their head can get into that,
An issue.
if their head can get into that, or they could potentially get stuck, that's a hazard. If it does not open, it's a safe clamp. It's a safe clamp. Yes.
My second question is, these that we put on the little birds?
Yes.
I don't like them. I'm so afraid that a little bird could end up getting through that. I saw a picture of that happening, and I don't know how common it is, like for a budgie or something, a cockatiel. They make straw things to put on it to cover it, a straw cover.
Oh,
That make it safer or no?
those are actually good, I think, Jasmine.
I have never seen those, so I don't know.
Yeah,
But the clamps that she's using are definitely safer than the metal clamps.
Yeah.
So those hooks are definitely safer than the metal hooks. I've never seen those. I've never seen the straw. I don't know. I'm not familiar with that.
It's just a plastic piece that slides up and down to close it. So
like
Nina Green Feather Toys uses that on our toys. Those are very safe because if a bird were to exert any kind of pressure, like a larger bird, it just snaps apart. They can't get their beaks caught on those. I know exactly.
And they can't eat it. They can't ingest it.
Well, they get, a parrot.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, so I have those on a lot of toys. I think they're really safe. Those are not going to pierce through the back behind the bird's beak.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Those plastic ones are much safer, and they are the best option as opposed to the metal ones. Absolutely. 100%. 100%.
My third question is, the stainless steel skewers that they put different vegetables on or toys on, they have a little ball on the end that screw on to close it. The stainless steel skewer things.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen where a bird gets that ball off the end and could ingest that? Have you ever seen any issue with the actual ball?
The balls are big, though.
Yeah, I'm not really familiar with the skewers. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have those. The balls are really big. I mean, I don't think even a hyacinth could swallow one of those. No, those are actually excellent for toy making because you just screw the ball off, and all those toy parts you bought that your bird really likes, you just you make little holes in them and put those on, and then it's so
from old toys.
Yeah, just make sure it's secured. Just make sure it's tight. It's screwed on very tightly, and that again, they're parrots. They can unscrew and get to anything, but I think that just trying to make sure it's as secure as possible. Yeah.
Wendy was also asking about Sola. I think Sola is perfectly safe.
No. Sola, I use Sola all the time in my toys, and I think what people are mistaking for styrofoam is actually Sola, and it's very safe. So
yeah,
styrofoam toys, I don't think it's styrofoam. I think you're thinking Sola.
Nice.
Yeah, Sola.
I've never seen
Sola's good stuff.
Jan asked about newspaper. Newspaper used to be really problematic, but I don't think it is anymore. They changed. The dyes are now supposedly all natural, right, Jasmine?
So that's the biggest thing is the dyes, and again, a lot of people have steered away from newspaper in general. A lot of our clients are using just your typical paper towels for the bottom of the cages if need be. And, when we talk about making household toys, we always recommend making them in like paper towel type of material, or ghosties as we call them, which is like a tissue type of paper that has no dyes or additives or medications or anything like that. I would say that newspaper is still a touchy topic, I would say, as far as what I've seen in the clinic.
Not for the bottom of the cage, but for making toys.
I think in general, I think that a lot of clients in general have a big fear of it, because, if you think about it, when a bird goes to the bottom of the cage to mate or to lay eggs, they're releasing certain toxins from their body that could potentially bleed into that, and then, kind of bleed back into them. The risks are so minimal, but I think that people have gotten so afraid of, right. When they because when they mate, they're rubbing. So they're rubbing against stuff. So technically, a lot of clients' fear is if they're at the bottom of the cage and they're on top of a paper and they're rubbing against that, are the toxins of that newspaper getting back into their system? Again, probably very, very minimal exposure, but something that still is something that we still have to, let people know of.
Carol,
especially since we don't know where these papers are being printed from all the time. Sometimes we get random, I don't know about you guys, but I'll get random spam like newsletter or something in the mail about like a promo or something, and you throw that in. You never know if you throw that in the cage or make a toy out of it. You just never really know.
The sales papers and the shiny flyers are definitely
right.
Shiny. Carol wants to know how. This is an interesting question. How are solar balls put together? Are they glued together? What kind of glue puts them together?
I do not know.
I do.
I'll be honest with you.
They're mostly made in India and in that area, and it's from a sola tree. It's the inside part of it's like in the swampy area, this big weedy bush, and they take the bark off. So you can get it with bark too. I have some bark, but they make beautiful flowers with sola. And these women from India, they sit around and make these amazing, beautiful flowers. They slice it with a knife, and the sola sticks and stuff that we get, it's the inside part of that. So they're using the whole thing and making money on it. And for them, it really helps a lot of people.
But how is the ball put together?
It's all small strands, and when they do it wet, they pull it together and tie it. There's a string inside that's tied, and then when it dries, it like fluffs out.
I bet there's a YouTube. I'd love to.
I have the right stuff.
Carol also said about toys made in China. Okay, so the dirty little secret is that it honestly doesn't matter if too much if the toy is made in China or made in the U.S., because even if it's made in the U.S., most of the parts are coming from China. So the real question is, where are the parts coming from? Are the parts safe or not?
And metals being the big thing. And one tips for stainless steel, if it says it's stainless steel, 304, the 300 series stainless steel is the main one, and a magnet will not stick to it. A magnet does not stick to stainless steel. Barely touch it, barely. So
and it's important to know where the parts are coming from, but more importantly is where has this product been sitting, right? So if you're ordering a product, who knows how long it's been sitting in the warehouse? Who knows how long it's been sitting in the back of a truck or in the back of, or in a sub warehouse or something. And what weather exposures it's been through, and has it had moisture? And that's why we always say, do not reuse Amazon boxes, do not reuse Walmart boxes or anything that comes shipped to you, because we just simply do not know where these products have been sitting. And they could have been sitting in, manure, they could have been sitting in mold, they could have been sitting in, species. We just have no idea. So that's I have also been very, very, very intrigued and tempting to buy products from like Temu and different types of websites that are outside of this country. And as soon as I start looking a little closer, I'm like, no, absolutely not. I would not even buy the products to make the toys for my birds from these types of situations. Not because of anything other than the fact that I just don't know. It's so unknown, and I do not want to introduce that to my bird.
Yeah.
It's already an unknown situation where we live, let alone where, where these products are coming from, from other countries. It's tough. It's tough.
But they're all coming from other countries, Jasmine.
Absolutely.
Toys you see on
Unless you make homemade toys, which I always encourage people to do.
Yeah, but the parts for the homemade toys are coming from other countries.
Correct, unless you're using natural resources. And that's why I always say, as unsafe as a paper towel or toilet paper roll may be, it is a lot safer from an unknown product that's coming from overseas or from, even, New York or wherever, that we just do not know. So if we have the resources to be able to provide the stimulant that we need to provide for our birds with the resources that we have at home. And it doesn't have to be a toilet paper roll. It could be anything. It could, like I said, it could be attention. It could be playing a game with them. It could be, singing your favorite song with treats, introducing treats. It could be, I have hung, I've taken, not paper clips, clothespins, and just hung vegetables from the top of the bird's cage just to get them excited about going from, one to another, just to, want to play. So it really, it's being creative about it, but at the same time, just being aware of what you're introducing to your parrot.
All right, going back to the chat. So Carol said, if you microwave an egg carton, you can kill the salmonella. And she used to use microwave stabilization in her lab years ago. So that's a good point because
that's true.
It should hold up well in a microwave. Gayla wants to know where you buy egg cartons. I don't know, Gayla, but maybe if you Google it, you can get back to us. Carol says, my green tea conure chews on vet wrap. Is it safe or unsafe? I think vet wrap is pretty safe.
Vet wrap is safe.
Yeah.
Somebody listed where to get the egg cartons from.
Oh, there we go. Jan did, if we scroll further down. Karen,
Actually, Amy, I have my hand raised. I don't know if you can see it. I have a question about the, thank you. I have, I guess get my picture up here. I think.
There you are.
There I am. Okay. I have a question about the clothespins. I think that's a great idea. I have two kinds. So I have the kind that has a spring in it. I'm thinking that's not good. Because if they could get a hold of it.
So if you can make it so that the spring is on the outside of the cage, it makes it a lot safer. If you can eliminate the spring altogether, perfect. But I usually place them on the outside of the cage, so literally just the pincher is on the inside of the parrot cage, and then there's the vegetable or whatever stimulant that is hanging from it, whether it's millet or vegetable or their favorite treat. But it's just that little dangly part, and he kind of just attacks that and leaves everything else alone. But if
I
you
have some very
ones
old,
without a
I have
spring,
some very old ones also. I might be able to use that.
yeah, they're great.
Good idea.
They're great.
Thank you.
Yeah, Jen was making a comment on the skewers, very tiny nuts. Jen, it depends on the skewer. So I have skewers, and it's a large ball. I'd say maybe an inch to inch and a half in diameter. No bird is swallowing that. I also have the other types of skewers where the end skews into like a little apple on top or something like that. And that's another sort of toy foraging and food thing. Every day my birds get cut up vegetables on skewers in their cages. So that's entertaining them. It's nutritious. It's a great way to plan it. But yeah, I haven't seen skewers with tiny nuts. I would obviously that I'd want to stay away from because a larger bird can certainly swallow it. We have a bunch of comments on stainless steel rusting depending on the gauge and the grade. So again, those are good things to know when you buy a toy. We have some comments thanking you for the presentation. And let's see, Gayla. My parrot prefers to play with her toys on a flat surface rather than painting. Also, my parrot loves for me to play music. When the CD is over, she lets me know so I can put on another one. Also, I take my parrot out for walks for stimulation. She loves people. Yeah, I mean, these are all really good solutions.
It is. And, I will say I have probably about 5 toys in my parrot's cage right now that are untouched. And his favorite thing in life is when we get home and we sing to him and tell him we're home, Pete, and we do our happy Pete dance and we do our happy bird dance. And that's his favorite thing. And it really isn't about the toy. It really isn't about the material of the toy. They just need to feel love. They need to feel like they are important, like they're doing something, because in the wild they are always doing something. They are not just laying in a nest waiting for, these predators to come and grab them. They are constantly on alert. They are constantly working. So when we domesticate these animals, it's important for us to understand that we've taken on a life that will most likely live some of us, right? Because these are very, very long-lived species. But more importantly than that, we are responsible for making sure that they have all the tools that they need to be able to have a successful and a healthy lifestyle. And that includes mental stimulation, proper behavior training, and engagement with your animal. And that is the most important thing. I cannot tell you how many times there's a difference, I always say this, there's a difference between a bird owner and somebody who owns a bird, right? Bird owners, we know our stuff. You can't just go to any vet or you can't just go to any place and not know your stuff. But somebody who just bought a bird, they're usually the clients that say to me, well, an exam is $100, but I've already spent X amount on the bird. Yeah, and you're going to spend a lot more on this bird because they are going to live many more years, most likely, than you. And they are going to require way more than what a cat or a dog does. And I think that that's the misconception when people are, looking for a pet. A cat and a dog can be very simple. It's a big responsibility, but it can be very simple. But when you get into the world of exotics, in particular with parrots, it's a totally different game field. Totally. It's a lifestyle.
Can I add in? My parrot is almost 26, and I've had her since she was a hatchling. One day when I was doing dishes and I had her food bowls next to me while I was doing the dishes, because they're social animals, she climbed over on the drain board. And she did that several times. I finally just gave it to her, put her food dishes in there. I have an egg carton there with all kinds of little stuffed toys that she can pick out on there. And then I have a play stand next to it that she can climb up and look out the window. And below that, I have her toys, have some toys for her to chew up when she wants to. But I notice she does these things when I'm there doing, in the kitchen, washing the dishes. She's next to me. It's because they're social. And that's really important, to keep that interaction with your bird. Otherwise, she's not very interested in playing with her stuff.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. Engagement is the best enrichment, and it is the best toy, quote unquote toy that you can give them, because that's really all they want. They want attention, whether it's negative or positive attention. They just want attention. And even right now, I am, doing this talk with you, and he is in this corner just begging for attention.
Take him out.
And he gets all the attention. Trust me, he lacks none. But again, this is what drives him. He doesn't care about toys. He could care less about treats. He likes certain things, but he had, and again, I rescued this bird, so I don't know what his lifestyle was before we got him. But what I do know is that when we did get him and finally started, it took him 2 years, but when we finally started coming around and giving him attention, we quickly realized, okay, this is what this bird has lacked and he's 24. This is what this bird has lacked for 15 years of his life. And that's sad. That's very sad to think about, and that's my biggest thing when it comes to, these talks and these conversations about toys and this. We can shower them with everything. But if we're not giving them the most important thing, which is our time and our engagement, we're not fit to be bird owners. We're really not.
Looks like Carol, did you want to ask your question?
Oh, yes, thank you. Actually, this isn't even a question. It's just something that I wanted to put in from personal experience. About 40 years ago, at least. I got a gold-capped conure that was one of the first domestic reared birds back then, and she was very young, and she could barely even walk on a cage, and I had gotten some of those extra food cups, the ones that have the little metal hooks. They hook on the outside, and she climbed out of the cage, and as she was walking up the cage, one of those little hooks stuck in the band on her leg.
Mm.
And the more she tried to climb, the more it pulled. And I mean, fortunately, I was there and I grabbed her, and she bit me so hard that, like 40 years later, I still have a scar on my finger from her biting so hard. But that's why I have 3 rescues now. And the first thing that I did when I got them was I removed their bands because I just think bands are unsafe.
Mm.
And so I just wanted to mention that. And then the other thing to your what you were talking about the importance of engagement and all of that. None of my 3 birds, all of whom are rescues, then they all came from the same basement where they were put because the people thought they were too messy and too noisy. Um, but none of my birds play with toys. But what they really like is, especially, I have a little white-winged parakeet, and when I'm in the kitchen at the sink cooking, whatever it is, doing food prep, what that bird absolutely loves to do is either if I've washed the little colored peppers or cucumbers or zucchini or something like that, or an apple, he will just sit there for 30 minutes and shred it. Just take it and throw the pieces all over the place. It's just the happiest thing that he can do. And the other thing that he really likes is I have a set of stainless steel mixing bowls with rings on the side, and he'll just over and over again lift up the rings and let them go, lift up the rings and let them go. He loves the noise. I think he just likes making the noise.
Oh.
And he does that and he chirps and he loves it. So that's all. But his,
And
his favorite, his
and to
favorite
your
toys aren't toys. That's the thing.
And to your point, we have had a lot of clients that have come in for band removals. And, we are not the type of vets that are going to tell you, no, you have to keep the band by all means necessary. It's the most important thing in the world. If it is a danger and if it is something that is detrimental to their lifestyle, it's coming off. We have removed more bands than we have placed bands. So I understand where you're coming from. I 100% understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Thank you.
By the way, for anyone looking for egg cartons, Gayla posted a link. It's to a cricket farm because, if you buy crickets, come in.
Oh, yes.
It's the same thing. I buy a lot of mealworms and use them for the outside birds, and they come in egg cartons too, but they're ridiculously cheap. So if you want to buy them, you could, for a few dollars, you can probably buy enough to last you a year. So to me, that would be a lot safer than reusing the ones from the supermarket. And it's funny because I only buy like cage-free eggs and free-range eggs. Those don't usually come in cardboard. They come in plastic or well, not even foam. The ones I buy always come in plastic, so I never have that option.
One of the things I did want to show you guys, which is something that I have just learned about. I don't know if anyone has ever heard or seen of this product, but the biodiversity bird blends are an amazing, amazing product. We use it a lot for our clinic, but in particular, because we talked a little bit about different types of toys, I love these. These are just like freeze-dried squash ends and, just different type of things like this.
Ooh.
They're 100% natural and the bird loves them. So whether I pin it up against his cage, put it at the bottom, put it in a bowl, he goes nuts over these. And they come in all different types of squashes. So biodiversity, we do not endorse them by any sense, but they have been a lifesaver for us. And they also have a lot of different types of foraging kits that you can implement into your toys. And they also sell foraging boxes that you can actually create your own foraging kits. And it's, again, better than a toy because not only are they being mind stimulation, but they're also enjoying some really, really good treats in between as well. So biodiversity is very, very, very good.
And they also import native natural foods from countries
Yep.
birds may be from. So they have, for example, Australian foods that your birds would actually be eating in the wild in Australia. If you have
Absolutely. Yes.
Jason Crean's company. So we, I think it was last year, we had Jason give us a talk, and he talked a lot about those too. So great stuff. Oh, Jason, what do you say about vet tape? Vet tape is good.
Vet tape is good. I would purchase it from a vet clinic if you can, because we're getting the good stuff. We're not getting the stuff, on Amazon. They do sell it on Amazon, which is great, but we can get the actual animal grade stuff. And if you need to, just call me. I will place an order for you and I will have it shipped to you rather than buying it on Amazon.
I use vet tape. I've got heated perch for my cockatiels, and I wrap because those perches are slippery and stuff. So I use
Oh yeah.
perches with vet tape.
Well, isn't medical grade for humans the stuff they sell in like CVS or any of that? What would that be?
Yeah,
It's a little bit different it's a little tiny bit different from animals. Just because they do take extra precautions for different types of allergic reactions for animals. If that's all you have access for, I'm sure that it's satisfactory. But if you do need to order medical grade, please feel free to reach out to me via email on my clinic, and I can definitely order it for you. No problem.
I have another question for you. I'm 73 and I've moved a lot, and when you're moving, you go get boxes anywhere and everywhere. You used to, you didn't buy them. And but also just bringing bags in your house for years of my life. And I used to live in the South, and they would caution you not to keep bags, paper bags and boxes and things in your house. Don't bring them. Bring your stuff in and then get the container out of your house, because they were afraid of like roach eggs.
Oh.
And then, so years later, I believe a lot of things were being treated to, so that roaches would not want to be in there laying eggs and whatnot. And I don't know what common practices are nowadays, but I have been curious because we're using so many things in our cages at the rescue as how are all these products from home, because you don't know if they've been treated or not.
It's tough with those type of items, especially cardboard, and boxes that are coming from different places, to really be able to know definitively if they're safe or not. So I always say try to steer away from them if you can. I understand in rescues and things of that nature, resources are very limited, so you have to do what you have to do. I think that letting them air out, if you have to, use those resources, letting them properly air out and dry out is really the only thing you can do to really be on the safest side as you can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, Myra says one thing may miss. We need to check our toys for wear and tear.
Absolutely. So rotate your toys. Yep, that's another. Yep, absolutely great point. That wasn't brought up in the PowerPoint, but rotate your toys. Go in, check that all your clamps are clamped, check that all your fasteners are fastened, check that all your toys are appropriate, and if they are not, get rid of them. Again, a lot of people, from the medical standpoint, I do get a lot of this. Well, I spend so much money. Well, you're going to spend a lot more money if something happens to that bird and it requires a surgery or a foreign body type of procedure.
Yeah, and birds, especially like cockatoos. Cockatoos like to undo everything. So they're always going to be undoing any clasps or clamps or anything. That's how they play. So
exactly.
Speaking of play, I have to find it, but a couple years ago, I saw this great article about how parrots play, and it was by species, and I think there were like 5 types of play types that, and identifying what kind of player your bird is makes a huge difference in terms of what you buy or don't buy them or make them, whatever. So, like cocktails, for example, aren't big on playing with toys a lot. Cockatiels are explorers. So if you can let them run around, like mine have full range of the big counter in my kitchen. So they just run around and explore and look at things and test things and beak things. But the toys in their cages, occasionally they'll play with, but that's not a big thing for them. But that doesn't mean I'm doing anything wrong or they're getting the wrong toys. That's just not what cocktails do. They get their play and their enjoyment out of exploring. So knowing what kind of play bird does is important to matching them to the right experiences.
Absolutely.
All right, do we have any more questions before we wrap up?
Nope.
I know that I was trying to keep up with the chat. The chat was just like flying by with comments and everything, but this talk will be posted to YouTube, so you can watch it again if you missed anything or want to take any notes or anything. But I want to thank Jasmine very much for giving us this talk. It was great. I hope we all learned a lot. And if you have any questions for Jasmine, let me know, and I can always get you in touch with her. And otherwise, I'm going to stop the recording now.
Okay.
Thank you.